Hey guys, it's me, Brianna from Diet Divas, the DD of your weight loss. And I am officially not worried about storage space at this moment in this video. I am uploading this video on my computer. So this will be the first time I make it on my iMac computer. I do not know how to edit it or put it through any apps. I just got this iMac a few months ago, so I'm still trying to figure out how to work with it and all that good stuff. But I wanted to put this on my iMac because it's a better quality, and the screen is bigger, so it will allow me to show you things that I want to show you. It's going to be a little story time / inspiration / motivation / poetry reading. I had recently took a class at my college, and it was a poetry class because I am a creative writing major. I do not like poetry. I'm not very good at poetry, but I was required to take the class anyway. At the end of the semester, we had to make a poetry collection, a book as if we were going to publish something. And I made this book, and it's all about my eating disorder. And I completely forgot about it, but I remembered it, and I just really want to share it with you guys. I really don't want to ramble that much because there's a lot in here. There's going to be a few things I'm going to have to show you, stop and pause and explain things. But I'm so excited for this, guys. I worked really hard. I got an A+ on it. It was my final. I love it so much, and it's just, it helps me deal with my eating disorder, and it allows others to understand my eating disorder and sympathize with it, and understand that it's not just a word. Eating disorder isn't just a word, but it's a awful disease that affects a lot of women, even men in this in the world. So let's get started. I entitled this "Beauty Inside the Disorder." I got this idea simply just because when a lot of people think about eating disorders, they think about the hatred and how disgusting and awful it is. And absolutely, I agree with you with 110%. But I have a binge eating disorder, which is totally on the far other side of an eating disorder. Like anorexia and bulimia are on like this side. Binge eating is on this side. And anorexia and all those other eating disorders, they hate their eating disorder. It's like a monster that lives over their shoulder. But for binge eaters, their food is their friend. The eating disorder is their friend because it allows them to eat as much as they want and binge and purge. And if you are a purger, and just makes you feel happy, like that person is your friend. So here's the cover. Isn't it totally official and fancy? Yeah, all that good stuff. So it's called Beauty Inside the Disorder. And we had to have a content page. So the things that I will be reading to you, I have a dedication page, Brittany Story, which is not a poem. It's a short story that leads into my artistic statement, and then it leads actually into the poems, which are called Power of the Disorder, Thin, Small, Beautiful, Ben, A Trip to the Bathroom, and it ends with Prison. And I tried to make these poems tell a story in a sense. So the first page, it is dedicated to my mother, who never gave up on the idea that I would be a famous author someday. So the first story is Brittany's Story, and I had to add this, even though it wasn't a poem. I had to add this to my story because it really wraps. It allows everyone to know why I made this collection about my eating disorder. So, Brittany's Story. Over the summer, after completing my first year of college, I attended several eating disorder support groups. They were hosted by my eating disorder counselor. I had scheduled visits with her every week, and she had asked me to attend one of her sessions to get a feel of the strong support in this community that is involved with others who are facing the difficulty battles that I was also facing. There were people at this group as young as 15 and as old as 40, men and women. You could glance around the room and see the different body shapes that allowed a person to be labeled as a certain eating disorder. There were 15-year-olds with anorexia, 36-year-olds with bulimia. There were binge eaters like myself, and there were special cases where individuals went from one specific eating disorder to another. The support group ran exactly as you see in the movies. The stories were told, snacks were provided ironically. Everyone asked to know your story, and no one's secret was safe. It was halfway through the meeting when my counselor kept directing her attention towards me. I could tell she wanted me to stand up and tell everyone my name and then cry and tell them why I enjoyed food over most people. But I was not going to allow myself to become vulnerable in a room full of strangers. Instead of my counselor asking directly me to open up my story, she directed her eye contact to the biggest girl in the room. Her name was Brittany. She asked Brittany to open up and tell her story so that the new people in the room would feel comfortable telling their stories. I was surprised she was going to call on this girl. She was the first girl to sit down at the seat. Others hovered near the door just waiting so they could escape. She was the one that looked down at the floor, trying so hard to make herself smaller. She wore a hoodie and shoved her hands into the pockets in the front. She was trying so hard to not allow others to notice her stomach, her face, her legs, herself. I was surprised when she very confidently stood up and made eye contact with me and then around to the rest of the room. Brittany was born with Prader-Willi syndrome. She did not have mentally classified eating disorder. She did not have what everyone else in the room had. She was not chained down to an eating disorder. But instead, she was shackled down to a physical brain defect. Her brain never knew the satisfaction of being full. She was always hungry. Her disease was never classified as an eating disorder. It was far more serious than anything anyone else in the room had. There was no real treatment for her. But her grandmother thought it would be helpful for her to join the support group so Brittany would not feel so alone with her problems. I only met Brittany 3 different times during those meetings. I had to stop attending the support groups because my sophomore year in college was soon to start again, and the long drive to the clinic was not reasonable anymore. I found out through social media Brittany had passed away halfway through my spring semester, this semester. And it leads into my artistic statement that we had to add into our collection. It's my artistic statement. My poetry collection, Beauty Inside the Disorder, was not made just for my eating problems, but for everyone who has ever had a problem involving food. For anyone who has had anorexia, bulimia, purging, binge eating, or even a situation like Brittany's. Eating disorders are all about what we want that we can never have. Beauty. The thought that beauty is never attainable. The thought that no matter how small, big, weak, or how close you are to death, you can never truly see yourself as happy, as full, as beautiful. I hope that my collection of poems will allow those to understand beauty is always connected to the disorder. Beauty is inside of the disorder, and beauty is what makes the disorder. And that leads into my first poem, which is called Power of the Disorder. Beauty is equivalent to disorder, for disorder holds the power to change the way you see yourself. The disorder inside of you is so strong, it can change the way you feel about the world around you, but it only allows you to see the world in one aspect, in one light. Disorder. The next one, I wrote a poem called Thin, Small, Beautiful, but my professor actually recommended that I make it into very short and small poems. So they are 3 separate poems. So I will be reading them. Thin. You cannot pinpoint the moment when you wake up and realize what happened. Stretch marks cannot speak and tell you the exact moment your mind took over your body. If your heart could talk, it would tell you to stick with what you wanted to be for so long. Thin, small, beautiful. Small. Nothing is loud enough to silence out the toxic thoughts of your brain, the only thing that can talk to you, that always tells you you will feel better every time you eat. Beautiful. Your family is often selfish for wanting you to give up what you love, what you want, what you need. It's hard to tell when your body Your brain, your mind, and your soul is taken away and silenced until nothing is left except for you and an eating disorder. This one, I'm really proud of this one. It's entitled Ben. A lot of people in the eating disorder community have nicknames for their eating disorders. You guys have probably heard about some of them. Anorexia, often girls call her Anna or Anna. And I call my binge eating disorder Ben because B-E, and then I just add the N. So his name is Ben, and this is dedicated to, as if I'm speaking to him. It's a love poem. When I do this, it's him speaking, and the rest would be me responding to him. Ben, I love you. I see the fear that lingers in his eyes when our time well spent together has come to an end. He's afraid. He's always afraid. He's worried this time will be the time that I leave him. Please do not leave me, but I stay, and I ignore what others say about him, about me, and how he is not good for me. No one understands our relationship. I stay, and I punish those that say these things, and I pull him closer to me. And we do what we have done for years, and nothing ever changes. I cannot live without you. His insecurity has never left him, no matter how many years I stay with him. He always asks me, "Do you love me?" Yes. I can't help but to be sympathetic towards him. I am his world. No him without me. I know he's afraid one day I will leave, because no one usually loves their eating disorder, but I cannot help but to love mine. This one is called A Trip to the Bathroom, and it's a prose poem. That's what they're called. Although she said I did not do this assignment right and that this is too long to be a prose poem, but I could put it in my collection anyway. A Trip to the Bathroom. The pain was over and satisfaction took over my body for 10 glorious minutes. The carbs, calories, and fat will satisfy my body until morning, but my mind will still remain upset. I crawl in bed and lay on my side, too afraid to do anything else. The words fat ass, obese, disgusting, and disappointed rings in my ears for over an hour. I had allowed myself to stick to only apples and low-calorie soups for the past 4 days. My body was starving, and my mind was conflicted. Be like a model, my mind would say, until it would change its mind moments later, and it would decide that your best friend, food, was worth more than any body type. You can fight this eating disorder. I know you can. My counselor's voice pierced my ears. Just another person I'll be disappointing. The carbs, calories, and fat laid in my stomach as I continued to feel sorry for myself, until I stood up. I rushed to the bathroom with all the knowledge of bulimia in my mind, jumping from one eating disorder to another. I planted my knees to the edge of the toilet and looked at the clear water staring back at me. I saw my reflection. "You disgust me," I shouted as tears continued to fall. I'd never done this before. I never wanted to. A fresh start was all I was thinking of, like the calories never even happened. I gagged and I gagged and I gagged. Nothing. And gagged and gagged and gagged. Nothing. I collapsed in the floor of my bathroom and cried, allowing the helplessness to take over my body for another hour. The tears fell down my cheeks to the floor. The meow of my cat shocked me back to reality. She was hungry. I stood back up only after my cat brushed her body against mine. I forced my body to enter my kitchen, ignoring the shame that was on my kitchen table, empty fast food bags that had just caused the trip to the bathroom. I grabbed my cat's food and gave her a packet of tuna delicious flavored meal and some treats on the side. I rubbed behind her ears as she began to eat, with no worry at all about all the fat, carbs, and calories she was consuming. Something that I wish I could do. This poem is the last poem of this collection, and it's called Prison. It's 4 sections, so it's on different pages, and I made 1, 2, 3, 4 different sections. So I hope you like it. This was an assignment to read write a poem as if you're in prison and giving advice to someone who is in prison. And I kind of did it a little differently than what the assignment had asked me to do. Prison. 1. Everyone is sentenced to a life of food. For 3 times a day, you are shackled to the fridge. Most eat to survive, while others eat to die. I met you, my friend, on death row. We were both there for different reasons. I murdered the word portion control, and you burned down a grocery store. We were very different. You hated food. I loved it. We still suffer together, but in different ways. The guards know why we're here, and they stare at your body. They know what injustice you have done. So they make a point to torture us more by limiting our weapons. The guards will be angry if you eat too much, or not enough, or not at all. Your cellmates try to kill you. He tells you to take bathroom breaks. My cellmate tells me to keep eating. The fear they give us is something we have accepted. We are in prison, after all. We spend our free time in isolation. You sit in a cold bathroom floor and let your tears mix with your vomit. I let my tears hit my food. I never hoard food. It's too dangerous. The guards might find it. I just bury it inside of me. They tell you it's in the beginning that only one of you survives. You or your cellmate. Me versus binge. You versus bulimia. Only one leaves this place. The other goes to the injection room. We have time to decide. 2. Your body can be too weak to move, unable to fight it off anymore until you eventually just give up. Or you tell the guards that your cellmate has been hoarding all of your happiness, your pleasure, your life, and the guards will send them to their death, and you will be free to go. 3. This prison is like no other prison. You get to choose your fate. And when you leave, you realize that the world has missed you. 4. And now I miss you. You left this prison years ago. I still get letters from you telling me to hang in there. You'll be out soon. I can't wait to see you again outside these walls, outside of hell, outside of my own pain. Well, that is my collection, Beauty Inside the Disorder. I really wanted to read that to you guys because you guys don't really get to see the dark path that my eating disorder mentally put me in for years. Now you guys get to see me kind of on probation with it a little bit. Instead of me being in prison with this eating disorder, I now frequently leave the prison, and I feel so great that I'm not shackled down to it anymore. But I wanted you guys to hear what mentally I was dealing with, and how free I feel now compared to what I used to feel like. This video is so long. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm gonna quit rambling. Please subscribe, comment, favor, share, like, all that good stuff on YouTube. I love you guys so much. Bye.